And I couldn't think of that for some reason. Hi, JC. I know you didn't like us taking you to the vet, but that was no reason to pee and shit everywhere on them.
Oh my god!
And then they had to sedate you so they could actually examine you. I'm not lying.
I know you're not.
And I kind of feel really bad for it, even though, like, no actual harm came to Jason. Just, like, maybe, like, an hour of distress and maybe mental fatigue. Because Jace is not exactly the same kitty as she was this morning and the day before. She's just kind of, like, well, that happened, but I don't really understand why it did. That kind of hurt my feelings, but I don't want to do it again. I don't understand why you would do that. It's just like you would know, and I can't put my finger on how it is that how Jason, like, you could tell her mood is really shifted. She's not super cranky and hyperactive. She's just kind of like, that was almost like going to jail. Like she had a serious moment time and thought to herself, like, maybe I should straighten up. I don't know. I kind of feel I'm a little, like, worried about it, but I think give it a few days, she'll be fine. Cause when I would take Izzy to the vet, she obviously wouldn't like it and would meow and, try to get away from you, but
Yeah.
the only thing different about her is, she wouldn't really want to be with you if you stood up.
Yeah.
But she'd, sneakily come to you and because she's like, well, I still love you and stuff, but I don't want to do that again, So, if Jace, looks like Jace isn't going to come back in here, I'm going to shut my door and so that way I don't bother Kelvin because he's asleep. I'll be right back.
It's so funny because my friend Wolfie, he has dachshunds, and I've learned a lot about them since I've known him, and they're actually very very good hunting dogs, and that's what they were bred for. So if they get out of sorts, then they are the worst dogs to have, like, angry at you. And, like, when they went to the vet, they had to get, like, a muzzle for her because she was so angry.
Poor Jace.
Well, nobody told her to poop and pee everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm more, like, I know it was really scary and stressful for her because she doesn't really understand. She didn't like it, but as the years went on, she got used to it.
Yeah.
And she knew when she come home, she figured out, it's like, well, I don't have to do that again, so I don't have to worry about it now. Till whenever they decide I gotta go do it, and that'll be whenever. Izzy eventually figured out that they'd look at her, maybe give her a shot, and then she'd get back in the cage and come home. Jace doesn't have that experience. She probably doesn't even remember going and being spayed.
Yeah, it's and of course just about every single person every single animal is different that you have. Some of them react okay with
Yeah.
with going to the vet, and some of them don't react okay at all.
I remember once we took this is when she was younger and, didn't really like going to the vet as much. Of course, who wants to go to the doctor? But, as she aged, she kind of mellowed out more. But anyway, we took her to the vet, and I remember they printed out, and Mom thought this was so funny, because she scratched one of the nurses, and the nurse, and on the little printout from the vet with Izzy's, a little icon of Izzy, it said, "Izzy was a good girl today." And it says that no matter what. But Izzy, that day, scratched the nurse. And I told Mom that and got it, and she's like, Cassie, did you know it says on here that Izzy was a good girl? And I'm like, she wasn't. She scratched the nurse. But I am a little worried about Jace, but I think she'll pick back up in the next few days. I mean, if he was here, you'd like really notice like something is very different with Jason.
Well, typically with particularly rambunctious types like Jace, it takes them a day or two to get over going to the, it's upsetting because it's different, and of course she's already had, some pretty stressful, upsetting things happen. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, she'll probably take a day or two, but she'll be back to her crazy self.
Yeah.
In very little time.
I know that, but I'm just like, I'm like, I don't expect her to be like, to be perfect, but I'm like, Izzy didn't have that much of a mood change. She'd just stay away from you because she didn't. Yeah. She'd think you were trying to get her again. I'm like, no, Izzy, you're over that. We don't have to do that for another year. Like the cat understands what I'm talking about. But she's just. I guess what gets me most is Jace is being a good kitty. And that is what's throwing me off. Like, she's being very quiet. She's calmly, kind of slowly just walking around, looking at stuff. She got in my bed, went to sleep a little bit, and then she woke up, and after I checked the mail, she jumped up on the desk, and I petted her, and she almost fell asleep a couple of times on the desk, and then she got in the window for a little bit, and then she got back on the desk and wanted more petting. And then I got up to take because we got chicken for dinner. I went to throw that away, and it's weird for Jace not to be running around, screaming at herself, trying to attack herself, biting people.
The sedative may take a bit to get out of the system as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that may be a part of why she's so low-key.
Maybe.
She may be for another day or two. Some systems it takes a while to get that out. Of course, it also depends on the kind of sedative that they used as well. So you never really know. I'm sure.
two kinds of sedatives. They told me, I don't remember what they were called. Like one to basically knock her out, so they could give her the like short term, so they could give her the longer lasting one. So that and I asked the vet, I'm like, well, how long would she be knocked out? And they're like, about 4 or 5 hours. Just keep her in the cage until she wakes up enough to, know, and then let her out, and she'll be fine. And I'm like, okay. Well, Jace was asleep in the cage, and we were coming home. Kelvin looks at the cage to look at Jace, and he's like, you're a bad kitty, Jace. You made Cassie pay $10 extra because they had to sedate you. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't. You ought to hear how Jace was going on. When we were trying to put her in the cage, and then when the nurses were trying to get her out so they could, examine her and give her a rabies shot. Oh my God.
Oh, Jace.
It sounded like somebody was killing a cat instead of trying to help it.
Oh my God. I know it's terrible enough, but I could just imagine.
I know it's hilarious. I mean, me and Kelvin were laughing about it, but at the same time, like I was really worried about Jace because, like, I knew she's gonna have a massive freak out, but good Lord,
it's a psychobilly freak out! Everybody, pull down your pants.
And then I expected her to pee because that's a defense mechanism meant to foul. Like who wants to be around pee? But then they brought me the cage back with Jace, sedated in it, and the nurse was like, okay, she's all done. She'll be up in 4 hours or something like that. She'll be okay. And then I'm just like, how come she smells like poo? She took a poop in the cage. Don't worry, I cleaned that up. And I'm like, I figured the pee, and I heard the nurses screaming, there's pee everywhere. Because somebody get a towel.
Oh my god!
It was. So in retrospect, it's hilarious, but, and as well as ridiculous. But I felt so bad for Jason.
There's pee everywhere.
And Jason's just sitting there like a normal cat would, looking at you like, did I really go through that? Like, why? Like, why did you do that? Like, she's just speechless. And she's got to that point where she's accepted it, but she still doesn't really understand why it happened. And she's just, did you guys really do that to me? Why would you do that to me? I know, I'm trying to figure that out, man. I'm worried that
I feel really bad for laughing at this. There's pee everywhere.
Right. Except I feel bad that my cat is being a good kitty. The devil is being good, and I feel so bad and confused by this. Because it was such a traumatic experience, and I don't want my cat to... I would like my cat to be good of her own free will, not be scared into being a good kitty cat,
Oh, wow.
So you should have been here for that. That was amazing.
Well, I grew up with cats and lived with cats. They were the only really the only stable figures in my life were the cats that I grew up with. So I became very close to them. But when we would take them to the vet, they all reacted differently. Like every single one reacted very differently. So I know exactly how that can be. But I've never had one that's been like, there's pee everywhere.
Well, thankfully she didn't pee and shit here. She apparently, I guess, eventually did it in the... I don't know when. I guess it was at the vet's office. Well, it was at Animal Works, which is a no-kill shelter, but...
Yeah. Oh my god. I'm just...
Like, I could tell you what happened. You'd be like, oh my god, I couldn't imagine. But then you actually be there, and it's actually a quite different experience than me relating this story to you.
No, I understand more than you might understand.
In a way, I'm sort of thinking like, I'm kind of glad Mom's not here, because I think Mom would have had a heart attack, because Jason's probably going to have a heart attack. Because when inspection came, and we had to move her to a different house so that they could come and inspect the apartment, and and I got her in there because she wasn't that big of a cat at the time. She's almost full grown, but wasn't quite. And I put her in that cage, and like I did with Izzy when Izzy was alive, I sat her in a chair. I went to go get a towel or something, or I thought Jace, probably would meow a lot, but she, she probably wouldn't be too happy in there, but it'd be okay. Jace freaked out and ran all over in that cage, was rocking it, and I was afraid the way I had positioned it in the chair, I was afraid she might topple it over into the floor, and me and Mom were both really shocked at how ferocious she just how much she freaked out while in that cage. And then you could also see Jace's little arm coming through the bars, and she's trying to open the door. I'm like, JC, you can't come out. And then believe it or not, when Kelvin went to my uncle's to pick Jace up, and because Jace stayed about 2 or 3 days at my uncle's in a spare room, and Kelvin could not get Jace to get back in the carrier, and according to my uncle, Jace was a little buzzsaw. And I'm like, well, I can imagine. And so I'm like, well, I don't know how we're gonna get her then if Kelvin, her favorite person, can't get her. So Kelvin talked Mom into going with him. to see if maybe she would come out from where she was hiding and interact with Mom. And since they couldn't get her to, they couldn't hold on to her long enough to get her into the cage, Kelvin actually brought a trash can, like that big trash can sitting in the kitchen. And he grabbed her and just threw her in that, and they shoved the lid on top of the trash can.
Oh my god.
And they put it in the car. Well, I think Mom held the trash can on the trash lid on top of the trash can, and they brought her in. They just bring in this giant I'm like, what in the crap? And then they open it, and Jace comes flying out, and I'm like, why was Jace in the trash can? And Mom's like, you're not going to believe this.
Oh my god.
I'm going to have some pretty interesting stories about Jason now.
Oh wow. I swear this. I can just imagine this giant trash can. And your mother having to hold it.
I don't remember if they brought it in my uncle's truck or if Kelvin put it in his car at the time and brought it. I know somebody was in the back. It might have been Kelvin holding it, but I want to say he was the one driving. But it could have took the collective effort of all three of them to bring Jason home. I don't remember why I didn't go. Oh, I think it was because Jace didn't like me. And so I was like, well, Jason likes Kelvin the most, likes Mom second, so it's probably best if they go. And that's because I put her in the cage, and I figured she wouldn't come out for me. That's why I didn't go.
That's so funny. Oh my god. I'm just... And it's so her, too. It's just... Yeah. It's not a surprise to anybody that knows her.
Now, this is why we call Jason the devil. Jace is, evil. I mean, I love Jason, and she can be a good kitty when she wants to, but it is very short-lived. And she's always full of energy, running around, jumping off walls, playing. She attacked my foot last night. One of the neighbors brought over, apparently they go, every week on a Monday or something like that, and they get, some, free food, a box of free food. Mm-hmm. And I had sorted through that, but I left the box open because I intended to use it to transport food when I move into the new place. Mm-hmm. And it was sitting in Mom's chair, and Jace had apparently discovered it and decided to be Maru and jumped into the box. and I've caught her in the box a couple of times. And I forget why, but for some reason I took it out of the chair and I put it in the floor. And me and Kelvin were going over when I moved, what he was going to take and what I was going to take and what we were going to try and sell or donate. And I didn't know this, but Jace had jumped into the box. And there are little handholds in the box. And me and Kelvin are just standing there, and I'm not really thinking about it, but suddenly I feel a tapping on my foot. And I look down, and I'm like, what in the world? And I'm like, I see Jace, she's in the box, and she's got her little arm, sticking through the handhold, and she's batting my foot, the top of my foot. And I didn't know it until I happened to move my pant leg last night. But she actually got me really good on my foot with her claws. And I bled so much, it covered my entire big toe. I had no idea that she had actually, cut me, and I was bleeding like that.
Oh my goodness.
It was all over the side of my big toe. It looked like I'd stepped, I took my big toe and dipped it in blood. It looked worse than it actually was. I easily washed it off with a rag, but...
I still haven't forgotten the root beer disaster. I feel so bad about it, but at least, I'm actually really Kelvin wasn't cut because...
Yeah.
They literally shot out right at his foot. like right at his feet and legs, and I was thinking, oh my God, I hope he doesn't get cut, because just like I was saying, I've been cut by glass before,
Yeah.
and it's terrible. It's so
Well, on
difficult.
top of it, he's diabetic, so he really
Yeah.
doesn't need that kind of crap.
I mean, exactly. That would have been terrible. So I'm really glad that it didn't hurt anyone. But oh my God, how embarrassing! I didn't even notice that bag had started. I had gotten it a little bit up, and I was like, oh, holy shit! I've got to get it down again.
Well, I
guess-
thought it was the salsa.
You thought it was what?
I thought it was the salsa, which is why I'm like, did the salsa meet an untimely demise? And you're like, no, it was the root beer. And I'm like, oh no, I was looking forward to that.
Well, fortunately, we were able to save like 4 bottles. So
Yeah, I think there's one still left in the fridge. I might have drunk it, but I think there was one left. I don't remember if I got to it or not.
next time we'll get some and we'll tell them to double bag it, or I'll bring my Fox bag, and that one won't break. So
Yeah.
we can be sure to enjoy all of the root beer that we bought instead
Or
of just
maybe
one.
we will carefully put everything on the floor and go through it.
And not throw it in the floor.
That's how Kelvin does things.